I can begin. Good morning. Those of you who don't know me, my name is Merlyn, my surname is Glass, and I am a nurse by profession, a midwife and pediatric trained, and I have always just loved genetics. So started at school when I loved genetics to the point that the teachers were a bit frustrated with me because they couldn't answer my questions. I then did nursing because I didn't know what else to do. Someone suggested I do nursing. I said, okay, and I loved it. And then I went on to do midwifery only because I wanted to do pediatric nursing, but turned out I loved being a midwife as well, which I absolutely loved. So I was in Johannesburg most of the time. After I finished midwifery, I went down to Cape Town for a couple of years, which I loved, but then I came back here to do pediatric nursing. So then while I was nursing, I came across a lot of patients with genetic conditions, but particularly after pediatrics, I worked in a ward where I worked with children with cystic fibrosis, hemophilia, Duchenne muscular dystrophy, spinal muscular atrophy, Fanconi anemia, some other weird and wonderful things besides thalassemia, and realized how much I actually love genetics. And in those days, we used to do ward rounds with the nurses, and I'd make them all do projects on all the different genetic conditions. Anyway, after years of working in peds and one too many children dying from cystic fibrosis, I just couldn't do it anymore. So I left and I worked with a pediatrician for a while. I then heard about the post at the Department of Health as a genetic nurse. I went to apply for the post. I got the post, and truth be told, I think I was probably the only applicant. But I became one of 18 genetic nurses in the country, and it was actually the most wonderful experience. So we had in-service training once a year in Pretoria. I've made lifelong friends of those nurses. Of those nurses, I think there are only 2 of us left to actually work in genetics. But it was quite amazing because we did all our own pedigrees, we did all our own clinical examinations, we did all our own bloods, all our own urine samples, made our own diagnoses, and only when I was really stuck, I'd refer the patients in here to the then South African Institute of Medical Research. When I worked at the Department of Health, Professor Trevor Jenkins was actually head of the department here at SAIMR, and he then invited me to come and have an office here. We were based at the Transvaal Memorial Institute, invited me to have an office here because he realized that I was really invested in genetics. He then was really an amazing mentor to me, as was Jenny Kromberg, and I learned a fortune from the 2 of them as well as the other doctors that I worked with. There were no genetic counselors at the time, so pretty much the people who did the genetic counseling cases were myself and Jennifer Kromberg and no one else. Eventually in 1989, Jenny Kromberg started the master's course in genetic counseling, and when we started with our first students here, which was actually a wonderful experience. Then what was really a highlight for me in this career was that I was entrusted in going on these outreach programs for Trevor and his research. He was doing a lot of research in admixture in the Bantu populations, and I was asked if I had my passport ready, which always is ready, and off I went to Swaziland, and I went off to Bushmanland, which was in Botswana at the time, and also to Southwest Africa, where I went just at the time of the transition of independence. So there was another program going on, and we were invited to come and help with some other project. But the by the way was that we could collect samples from the SAN to be part of the project. So that was another incredible experience. Jenny Kromberg and I went off to Swaziland, collected samples from children with Rufus albinism, and again, that was just really, really highlights of my life as a genetic nurse, because I was able to do the bloods, examine the children, all the stuff that the genetic counselors today unfortunately don't have that experience. So I think that being a nurse, I just have to look with glasses, I think that being a nurse really stood me in good stead for working with children and adults in genetics, because I was able to do, my own examinations and my own bloods and whatever. When I was asked by many people, why don't I go and work overseas? Why don't I take my profession, go and nurse overseas, as you can earn so much money? I just feel very passionately about being in South Africa and being able to help patients here. Overseas, they've got thousands of genetic people, genetic nurses, genetic counselors, and I just feel that I can benefit patients here. And I mean, it might just be one patient that I make a difference to, but that will be the patient that makes a difference. Years and years and years later, I still get messages, I still get phone calls, I still get photographs and videos of my patients or their children where they've been really sad cases that then shifted into, you know, better stories, and they've kept in touch with me all of these years. So I loved working in this department. I still love working in this department. I love working with my colleagues. I love working with the students. And over the years, I've developed really deep and lasting friendships through meeting all my students and working alongside them. I love teaching, love my patients. And yeah, I hope that I've made a difference to many people by being a genetic nurse all these years.
You definitely have.
Thank you.